Hi, I'm Bill Pearis, an editor at Brooklyn Vegan, and you are listening to BV Interviews, which features conversations with some of our favorite musicians. This week, we've got a living legend with us. Producer, dub stylist, remixer, On You Sound label founder, and all-around cool cat, Adrian Sherwood. He's worked with just about everyone, which if you didn't already know, you'll soon learn. Our wide-ranging conversation includes how he stumbled into record production, working with Lee Scratch Perry, The Fall, 9 Inch Nails, Dennis Bavell, and more, forming influential group Tackhead in the 80s, remixing recent albums from Spoon and Sonic Boom and Panda Bear, the disappointment of having to postpone his 2026 North American tour, 5 records he thinks everyone should own, and more. This was a real treat, and I hope you enjoy it too. Here's my conversation with Adrian Sherwood. Okay, today I'm very excited to have as my guest Adrian Sherwood, who has been a key figure in dub, post-punk, electronic music, and more since the late 70s. He runs influential label On You Sound and has worked with everyone from Mark Stewart, Horace Andy, Lee Scratch Perry in The Fall, to 9 Inch Nails, Panda Bear and Sonic Boom, and Spoon. Adrian is also a musician and has been a part of a number of groups over the years, including Tackhead and African Head Charge, and he released his 3rd solo album, The Collapse of Everything, last year. Adrian, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me, Bill. It's really kind. Yeah, I don't see myself as a musician. I'm not really a musician. I'm more a sound man. You know, I was once described derogatory as a fan who'd got his hands on a mixing desk, and I think I'm more that than a musician.
Okay. I read some quote where you consider yourself tone deaf.
I mean, my tuning's not great. I couldn't sit back like some of my friends are pitch perfect. If I hum anything, it's usually in the key of A. So I'm not unnatural, but I've got a love of sound and an understanding, and I think I bounce off musicians pretty well when I'm trying to make things for myself and explain what I want, what I don't want, and maybe play half as much or do this, do that. So in my role as a producer, and plus I'm pretty good with bass lines. I used to use the name Crocodile and things like that. So I play bass on things very, not brilliantly, but, kind of very raw, roughneck style on stuff. That was that's me. I don't see myself at all as a musician.
Okay.
In the orthodox sense anyway.
Were you just interested in like the tech and engineering side of things first? How did you end up being the producer that you are?
Well, I stumbled into it because I started when I was 17 as a junior member of a label called Carib Gems, and I was one of the junior directors, and I was choosing what we released. And in that period, I met some musicians in London, and I met some more through Prince Farai, because we released some music with him on it. And I then started a little label, Carib Gems, and then another called Hit Run. And Prince Farai, bless him, he helped me with some tunes, and I helped him overdubbing tracks. And my first experience in the studio was with him. And when I ran my first session, I used the name Creation Rebel. It wasn't a band. It was just named it after a great Burning Spear song. That was my little pet project, and people liked it, and it sold as many as the records I was licensing tapes for. And I thought, this is really good fun. And I started booking more studio time and running my own sessions. And I literally blundered my way in. I went to do gigs and with Farai, and there was nobody to mix the gigs. And the sound man was a nice guy, a white kind of rock and roll sound man. And I said, can you turn this up? Can you do this? And he said, go on, you do it. And I started mixing live gigs. I got thrown in at the deep end. And before you know it, you start realizing people saying, hey, that sounds good. And you're thinking to yourself, hey, I figure out how this works. And then bit by bit, you find your feet and you just keep pushing and wanting more and more. And that's the path I took.
My intro really only scratched the surface of what you've been involved with over the years, but that intro could have been a podcast in itself. You've done so much stuff.
I've been very lucky. Yeah, I mean, I run the label as my main thing. I kept thinking with the label, big labels will come and pick up what we did, but very often they didn't. And so certain titles got cherry picked, and I lost the the rights to them. But in the process of making these underground records that were on the label, bigger labels noticed, Daniel Miller and my friend at Mute Records and other people noticed and invited me to do a lot of the early remixes. And then Wax Trax Records in Chicago, Jim and Danny and Al Jorgensen, they invited me to do the Ministry album, and I got jobs away from my own thing, but I kept doing the jobs to try and make my label big. It never worked out. I kept thinking my records would sell 10 times what they did or 100 times what they did. But I don't regret it. I mean, I think, here as I'm getting older now, you look back with a bit of sadness that things weren't more successful for people, perhaps. But everybody amongst me had the creative opportunity to do what they wanted, and so did I. So I look back with a lot of pride, because a lot of those records still sound good after 45 years or whatever,
Yeah, for sure. I do want to get the elephant out of the room. This interview was originally supposed to be conducted to sort of help you promote your first ever solo North American tour, but you had to postpone it due to visa delays, which sadly over the last 15 years has really become a common problem. And it's both for international artists trying to play here become a difficult and expensive process. I'm sure it was both frustrating and heartbreaking.
I'm really sad, because I was really looking forward to reconnecting with a lot of old friends. I've got some of my best friends are American. I was looking forward to hooking up with them, spend a couple of days at the end with some friends as well, and to showing people what I'm doing at the moment, because it's a really great audio visual set, and it's a live dub mix, like building a studio on the stage. And I was planning on coming with my engineer from the studio, Matt Smith. So we were coming with the idea of coming to prove a point and have something, really powerful. So sadly, it's not happening. Well, hopefully it's going to be rescheduled. So hopefully it will happen. But the visa we've got is a 3-year visa. So I've been told I don't need to reapply. It's just, the chaos. How can you plan anything without that in place? I don't know. But hey, I'm not going to keep whinging. There's no point. It's how it is now. It's not as bad in here, but we should have a thing. We could have had, if it had been negotiated properly, a reciprocal thing with the European Union, where musicians could go and come between Europe and the UK and UK and Europe without all the hassle we have to go through now. Going to Canada, you don't actually need a work permit as a musician, as long as you're not there for too long. The States, it's a bit complex, but I guess it's a much bigger country. It's not so easy, but to sound disappointed is an understatement, and I'm sorry for those who bought tickets, but hopefully maybe it might even be a year from now we can just rejig the whole thing.
I was going to see you at the Big Ears Festival, which was going to be the first show of the tour.
Yeah.
And I'm disappointed.
Me too. I was really looking forward to Big Ears.
When was the last time you performed in any capacity in the US?
Properly, a long time ago. Long time ago. I think I did, I can't remember. Not doing it properly, decades, to be honest, because I came over for a couple of little things, but it was maybe 20 years ago.
Like when your last solo record came out?
I haven't done anything in a long time. It keeps promising so much and then causing me little bits of grief, the States, sadly. But having said that, I've got in my heart, total love of the legacy of the great music from the States. Great musician friends, great friends who were, in all different walks of life there. I was actually really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But such is life, as they say.
Such is life. Even though I'm not going to be able to see it next week, what exactly happens at a live dub session show?
Well, with the current set, I've got a 32-channel mixing desk, and I've got 16 channels dedicated. So I've got bass, drum, snare, hi-hat, toms, percussion, bass, guitar, lead guitar, piano, vocals, horns, whatever, all spread across the desk. I've then got 2 or 3 delays and 3 or 4 multi-effects, reverbs. I've got a pad with loads of samples and a noise machine. So I then go about doing a live mix and creating a cacophony of dub noise and feedback and spinning the rhythms and dubbing it up, taking it down to bass guitar on its own, then just to chop the guitar and the voice, then bang, dropping everything back and doing it live. And it's been working really well. And we've got, in conjunction, every tune, when I press the play button, it's triggering a visual that's made to go with each thing. So we've got this stunning visuals by the artist Peter Harris, who's helped by our friend Mike Hodgson to lay it all up. Mike's in New Zealand, Peter's in London, he's a great artist. So we've got this, like I said, audio-visual attack going on, and I was really keen to come there and try and blow a few people's heads off, in a good way. In a good way, sorry.
When you do reschedule your tour, like you said, it'll be your first ever headline tour here, but America and New York in particular are a big part of your story. Tackhead basically got its start in New York City, right?
Yeah, I came to a new music seminar where Tom Silverman invited me, and on that time the first one I met was Keith LeBlanc, rest in peace, my dear friend. And then Keith introduced me to Doug and Skip. And when I told him I'd been running a label since I was 17, they couldn't believe it. And they ended up coming and visiting us in England, and we became lifelong friends. Skip McDonald still lives a mile from me here. I'm going to spoke to him today, I'll see him tomorrow. I spoke to Doug today online. He's in Connecticut. I was looking forward to seeing Doug. We lost Keith last year, and I'm still very, the year before, so I'm still very, we're all still very sad about that. But Tackhead and our experiences, we did some lovely tours in the States. I remember selling out the Ritz for a couple of nights and traveling to Dallas, to San Francisco, to LA, all over. We had some amazing memories. And Tackhead, while not known by many people, is a very influential band. Lots of bands like Nine Inch Nails. I remember Trent used to come and stand next to me in loads of the gigs, just watching what was going on. And I had lots and lots and lots of people were influenced by Tackhead. Mark Stewart, again, dearly missed. So we've lost so many great friends over, obviously as you get older, they pass, but we've lost a lot lately. It's been very raw. So when I do the gigs, I've got Mark Stewart on, I feel like I'm channeling. I've got Lee Perry and Mark and Style Scott and Bim Sherman and everybody with us,
You mentioned Keith LeBlanc, who said has died a couple years ago, and Doug Wimbish and Skip McDonald, who, for our listeners, if they don't know, were all members of the Sugar Hill Gang's backing band. So they came from the New York sort of hip hop scene, and then you met them and took them in new directions.
Well, they kept doing what they were doing. I mean, they kept doing sessions. I mean, Doug is one of the world's premier bass players. He continued doing everything, all the hip hop stuff he was still doing. As was Keith, working for Tommy, and Skip did everything from, Peter Wolf to, go right across Wilson Pickett to James Brown. They did everything. Mm-hmm. But when we were together in England, we created our own little label, and working with On You as well, and working with Mute with Mark Stewart. While in England, they were doing, from Annie Lennox to Malcolm McLaren to ABC. Mm-hmm. They were doing sessions for everybody. Bomb the Bass. They were doing so much stuff where they were helping a lot of the UK kind of burgeoning hip hop scene as well. And together, what we'd do these mad nights, just instrumental, with the three of them on stage and me out front, doing violent mixing, and joined by Mark Stewart doing his stuff, which a lot of people found very hard work, but it was very, very powerful. And I think it's a Jamaican saying, each one teach one. I think we inspired lots of people. And when I hear that makes me feel really good that you got the nod on it. And I think, the actual supreme talent of Skip, Doug and Keith was it set a bar, and a lot of the people they influenced in England all did very, very well. Similarly in the States.
You mentioned Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails, and in '89, you all were label mates, right? Through TVT in America.
Well, for a minute, yeah. Well, they TVT released an album for us, so we were under the same label, but we didn't all. It wasn't we're on your label. They kindly made our stuff available and promoted it in North America.
I saw Tackhead around that time at CMJ. I want to say maybe it was 1990, and maybe it was at somewhere weird like SOB's at 1:00 in the morning. And what I remember about that show was just how insanely loud it was. I was not expecting Tackhead to be so loud.
Sorry.
No, at the time, having your ears blown out, was an exciting thing. And now when I hear ringing when I go to bed, it's not quite as exciting. But
no, sorry about that.
Yeah, Tackhead may have been the start of my tinnitus, but that's a proud thing. And I also, meanwhile, I think I first heard of you around that same time, not because of Tackhead, but On You Sound used to put out these compilations called Pay It All Back.
Yes.
And we played volume 2, which came out over here via Network, which was the label that was home to both like Skinny Puppy and Sarah McLachlan.
Canada as well.
Yeah, Canadian label. I just remember like being fascinated by, I'd never heard anything quite like it because it was a little bit of industrial, but a lot of reggae, and it had like Barmy Army and like all the the On You All Stars basically, and that was a very influential record for me.
Well, the idea with the Pay It All Back was to make them very cheap. The first album, Pay It All Back Volume 1, sold for the price of a 7-inch single. And the idea was to promote the label. That was the idea with them. Thank you. I mean, I did my best. I mean, if I was to criticize myself, I was probably never serious enough about promotion. So the Pay It All Back, I wasn't serious enough. I never spent any money on promotion. The Pay It All Backs were like, and the tours were our way of letting people know about us.
You said the first one cost the same as a 7-inch single. That's sort of, there's a famous Cherry Red compilation. I remember that I have the sticker of it, and says pay no more than 99p for this compilation or something. And
don't talk to me about Cherry Red records.
Okay. I followed you and On You pretty closely through the 90s, but I'll admit I fell out during the 2000s. And then I was happy to see your name popping up again in the 2010s. Sometimes it's hard to tell, like if you're looking at Discogs, because they have reissues and stuff, like how the catalog went. On You Sound never stopped, right? You guys kept going the whole time.
Well, no, I went through, like everybody, I mean, running a label for the length of time ours has been there. It's really difficult, because if you're hit oriented, if you suddenly make a big success, you need more staff and building and everything. If you don't maintain it, the business soon disappears and the label goes out of business. With me, what happened, I went through a period where the people I was working with in Germany, the distribution company went bankrupt, took us, cost us like, tens of thousands. And we were never big. It was always a fragile company, and reached a point where I think probably from after Bim died in 2000, it wasn't great. I mean, I had a few years of not feeling like working, wasn't doing very good work. The company nearly went bankrupt. I'm telling you all these stories, like it was not what people want to hear, but I had to sell my house. I paid off all my debts and then rebuilt myself. So it took me quite a while of going through little tribulations, but I suppose that makes you stronger as well. And then at least, my manager, my friend, Ray Hearn, he said to me, because I was told, I look, bankrupt the label, But he said, look, if you've got no honour, you might as well be dead. And it's true. So it took 2 years, paid off my debts, rebuilt the label. So if you look through it, I could go through it in the period when it's really the last 12, 13 years, I've really managed to rebuild the whole thing again since I've been living where I do now by the seaside. And I'm only about an hour or so from London, but where I am now, a much happier space. And this last kind of 14, 15 years, I've rebuilt it. But I think for the first 2000 to 2010, I was having a really tough time. And I think that goes on probably with anybody running a label. They'll say it's not easy. And now it's harder than ever in many respects. But, all of us who do it, we love it and we're very proud of what we've done. So, and I think at the moment, what's the saying, got your mojo back. I think I'm in very good form at the moment, and I'm very proud of all the records I've made. And I've got another stunning record that I produced coming out end of this month, a collaboration with Nightmares on Wax, which is a very, very fine record as well. So between the collapse of everything and that, I'm not rushing to put loads of things out, but I want to make sure everything I do work on is solid and leaping out of the speakers at you and exciting.
I was just going to say, I feel like you're more prolific than ever with so many like sort of high profile projects.
Well, it depends what gets offered to you. I mean, it's funny, I did an album with the band Spoon, which was a challenge, because it's not anything I'd normally do anything like, but the singer Britt and me got on all right. I mean, he's a real taskmaster, and he pushed me out of my safety zone. I was out of my safety zone on that. So I don't know if anyone's heard it, but I'm proud of it, because it was a real challenge that we had there. Then I did another collaboration album with Sonic Boom and Panda Bear, and that album is very, very good. I don't know if you've heard that album as well.
Heard them both. And
then this new one I've just done is another collaboration with Nightmares on Wax. Again, very, very happy. So those things are great fun to me, because I'm not having to deal with the business, run the label, and do everything. It's just pure fun, and challenging, but I love doing those.
Yeah.
And then doing my own solo record as well. That was something I hadn't done for a long time, and I think it's really good. I'm very, very proud of it. And yeah, I'm not rushing to just make records for the sake of it. I want it to be something that lasts the test of time.
I was going to ask you about both the Sonic Boom and Panda Bear and Spoon records, which were in the last 5 years. And the Sonic Boom and Panda Bear record obviously fits in with what you do. They already have sort of like dub elements and spacey elements. But yeah, Spoon, I was surprised when they announced that you were doing this, because in some ways that's one of their most traditional rock albums they've ever made. And Lucifer on the Moon, right? That's the title of your version. The original title was Lucifer on the Sofa. They're both great, very different. And how do you approach such a rock record like that? Was it very...
How the record went, that Britt he likes dub. I think he listens to it at home. He was exploring the avenues, because everyone likes the sonics, the use of reverbs, delays, and sound equalization, everything. So he wanted to make a dub album. Now, I think the original plan, he was going to get a few people involved doing it. And I think when the first mixes came back, he was particularly liking the couple I'd done. And then it got back, they said, look, he's going to keep the other ones and hold them back. And then it was proposed, why don't we do a whole album, using Adrian and the crew for that record. It was then a process of, I like Britt a lot. He's not easy. He's not a kind of person who just accepts anything, I can tell you. So he was, well, hi, Adrian, yeah, I like you, but can you bar 32 to this, to 36? What about if you did this? He's like really like kind of, oh, shit, this guy's really paying attention, and he knows what he wants and what he doesn't want. So I really liked it. I like, a rock record. Once it's got a groove and it's got some good riffs and good melodies, which is very, very melodic, Spoon, very melodic. It was just a question of deconstructing what he had and given the freedom to rebuild the drum and the bass. I just had to then slot their parts that I liked more than others and the melodic things and do a fractured version of his thing and make it sound like a new piece of work, but retain the mood and stuff, which I think we achieved. I haven't played that record for quite a long time, but I know when I put it back on, it will transport me back to when we were making it, and I'll stand by it. I know it was a good piece of work. So.
Likewise, Reset in Dub, I think, is just as good as the original, and I love the original, and I'm glad that we have both in the world. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I play that out when I go and I do one of the tunes of that in my live dub set. I've got all the parts and I mix it up. I'm very proud of that album. Very proud of that album as well. And it's sonically really great. And they're also it's like the Beach Boys meet,
Yep.
whatever. It's got a real melodic thing to it, as has Spoon. So both those things taking me out of my more limited dubby areas. They both gave me some really lovely colours to play with. So I love that. Check out the Nightmares on Wax one though, because that's going to turn some heads. It's really good.
That's basically another full album remix, right? For Inner Sound. What's the title?
It's called Inner Space Outer Dub. That's the album there, Inner Space Outer. It's not released till the end of the month, but it's, if I may say so, it's a fine record.
The original one came out 20 years ago, right? So it's sort of a 20th anniversary project.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about working on that one?
I went to see them last week. They did a massive show in London at the Albert Hall, which is a beautiful venue. About 5,000 people. And the show George arranged, George is a Nightmares on Wax. It was brilliant. I was like, wow. Orchestra, choir, good, brilliant rhythm section. He's a serious boy. He's like a Brit. That's probably why they're more successful than me, because I'm not serious. But he was one again. He would tell me what he liked, what he didn't like. We were like bouncing back and forth, because he actually lives in Ibiza. It's good when someone's pushing you, not just, because a lot of what used to happen in the old days of remixes. Well, these aren't remixes, they're complete remakes of the records, reworkings. The record company would broker the remix, and then you just get on with it. And the band probably didn't even know it was that bad at one stage, what the anarchy in the industry. But now, though, it's great, because if you are really working with the artist, like I did with all three of these, they push you, and they let you know, look, could like it more, do better. And also, I've got a good little crew around me who just will tell you when come, it could be better. Now make it wilder. We want more. Ding, ding, ding. And you get to a creative point where you start, this is I'm really like sinking into the spirit of this and getting something magic done. And that I learned from Lee Perry is what you've got to do if you're making a record. You've got to have an approach where you're trying to create magic or mischief and fun, and keep charm and keep working on all those things to instill them into what you're doing. And that's one thing I try and do all the time.
Tell me a little bit about The Collapse of Everything, which was your first solo album since the 2000s. I know it was partially inspired by the death of Mark Stewart and Keith LeBlanc.
Well, the thing is, I keep making records for other people, and I thought, I'm going out doing gigs, DJing, doing little dub shows as well. But I thought, I'm just going to up the ante. So my engineer and I spent weeks and weeks and weeks preparing sonics. I'd be taking some from my huge sound effects library I've got here of vinyl, and slowing things down and creating odd little bits of noise that we eventually pasted together with tuned drums and all sorts of little approaches using tuning and pitch and everything to create this otherworldly sonic I was trying to achieve. Putting together a lot of things I've been working on, it resulted in the album. And the title comes from a lyric that my dear friend Mark had when he worked with our friend Scott Crow, the anarchist writer and producer in the States. And he did a track for Scott, and inside called Stealth Empire, and inside that track, I don't think it's even come out, he had the lyric, "The collapse of everything, game over," was the thing. And it's like, I thought that is so appropriate now, and it totally fitted the tracks we've been making. But the album's not all doom and gloom. I think it's quite optimistic as well. I've got tracks on there about the Great Rewilding and other things, but it's
I feel like it has more of a traditional sound, like a dub style, than what you did in the 80s, 90s, or 2000s, which was a little more digital sounding. Do you find yourself drawn back to older styles these days?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm very excited by a lot of the new things. We've been playing around a lot with the Ripex and the AI things, not getting it to write any music for us, but using some of the tools. There's some incredible plugins and new things that are available to you as well. And we use them in conjunction with a lot of the old analog things as well. And so I'm fascinated by, we've got a lot of knowledge, obviously, and a lot of experience a lot of experience of using a lot of the vintage tools at my disposal that we've got. We've got some brilliant things, and there's new things coming all the time. Matt, who owns Ninja Tunes, is a dear friend of mine, he came up with this box called the Zen Delay, and I absolutely love the Zen Delay. Everyone should buy one. I'm just using that on a lot of my tunes and productions. That's new, but analog, so you play with your fingers and warp it and everything, and old American passive EQs, if you can get your hands on them. Marrying that with the new, that's what I'm more interested in than just going back to trying to recreate King Tubby from 73 or something. There's no point. I'd rather try and push it so that, the layers on the collapse of everything, I think sounds very contemporary. I don't see it as old sounding, because we're using a lot of new things in conjunction with very old techniques as well. But it's also very performance based. I've got, it's live bass, live guitar, live sax, everything all on top of it. So it's a bed of all that working, really nicely.
Okay. You've kind of been answering my questions before I get to ask them. I was going to ask, what kind of equipment do you primarily work on today, digital or analog? And it sounds like you use both. Do you still use actual tape loops and stuff like that ever?
I've got tape delay here, which we use. I've got a couple of tape delays. But for loops, look, analog, tape sounds better than digital. It's got frequencies that are missing in digital, and it's got it's like a living path in the sound. It really is better than digital, but I can't afford to maintain a fully taped studio anymore, and I wouldn't want to. It's a lot of effort, to be quite honest. And the digital is amazing, for speed and storage and everything. But using the box, the computer, taking things out of it and then processing it with these banks of analog and then putting it back, I love that. And making loops, you can make a loop in about 2 seconds, going from bar 1 to bar 8, say, of something on a grid, and you make a loop. It's the old days would be in a studio with a multi-track and mic stands, warping it round the room, about 4 or 5 if you're holding the mic stands.
Right.
That was fun. I missed that, to be honest. I wish it was still more tape manipulation than digital, but you have to embrace what's now. And I think there's some brilliant things come in recent years, digital and, like plugins and analog. And I think you have to go forward and just say, right, let's use whatever's at our disposal that we like and make it breathe and bleed and live and get something out of it.
Do you miss cutting tape with a razor blade?
Yeah, I do. Yeah? I've still got my old razor block over there on the side as a souvenir, the 1/4-inch one. Yeah, I used to love cutting tape up. Really creative and fun.
I saw that you recently played Berlin. Was like Berghain related?
Friday night we did, yeah.
Yeah, and you played either right before or right after Dennis Bavell, who...
Yeah, after Dennis is my close friend, yeah.
I was going to say, you guys have worked together from almost the start, if not the very start. I associate both of you with really being able to travel between the reggae and indie alternative worlds, and both are still, doing a lot of work to this day.
Well, Dennis is absolute master. I mean, he can play bass, he can arrange horns, he can do anything. Guitar, keyboards. He's a proper musician. He's much more musical than me, and he's got his way of producing, and he's very, very open-minded. So the man's an absolute, he's King Dennis. I love Dennis. Dennis mixed for me my first record when I was 19. We had a mutual friend who said, look, Dennis, I'm going to send Adrian down, can you help him? And I've known him ever since. So my kids know his kids, and I know his wife and everything. We're all, like, Dennis is like family. So I go back a long way, and he should be like wrapped up and looked after as gold treasure in England. He's proper. And what, if you look at the work he's done, from Fela Kuti to Orange Juice to the Slits and Pop Group to Janet Kay to, just on and on and on and on. And open-minded, very, very, very open-minded man. He's like, he's fantastic.
Both of you are people that, like, if I see you on the credits or something, I'm more interested to hear the record.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Do you have a dub mix or a production of someone else that you're especially proud of that just immediately springs to mind?
That I did, or that I...
Yeah, that you did. Yeah. A remix for someone else, or producing
I could go through loads. I mean, go back to the 90s. You've got, which is about to be re-released on Record Store Day. You've got Echo Deck, the album I did with Primal Scream. Do you know that album?
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good album. If I go back through, the problem is my brain's a bit,
right.
There's so many tunes that I think this one's okay, that one's okay, that one's really good, I like that one. That's an album that immediately comes to my mind because it's being re-released. But all the ones we've been talking about today, I think there's lots of things we've done that people don't even know them. I did an album with a Colombian band called Los Cateros de San Jacinto, which is a wonderful album. And that's basically a Colombian traditional music as a dub album. So I don't know if you check that one out, but that's a really, really nice album. I keep going. If I name track after track after track after track, but
I'm gonna name a couple then. Okay. That I like. First, something recent. I really like that Jeb Loy Nichols album, Big Troubles Come Through a Small Door.
Oh, I'm very proud of it. I love that album. But that's not really a dub album, is it? Are you talking about a dub particularly?
No, I just meant like things that you've been involved with. And I was going to say that's a bit of an unusual record for you and for On You Sound. How did you two meet?
Well, I was living in London in a squat in 1979, 80. And I was living with Ari Up, Nena Cherry, and my friend Junior Williams, who ended up becoming the father of Ari's twins. There was a knock at the door about 9:30, 10 in the morning. I answered the door, and there was Jeb, who came from Texas, I think. But anyway, he Texas, he was my good friend. I phoned Jeb today. He hasn't phoned me back, actually, weirdly. He lives in Wales. But he was looking for Nena because he'd lived in the same block of flats in New York when he was 18, and he'd left home as Don Cherry and Nena and Moki, her mum, and had come looking for her. And then we've been friends ever since. So I've known him since 1980, when he was about 18 or something. He's a great singer-songwriter. I love him. But I could name lots of records that we've made that people just don't know them, like Ian King, Panic Grass and Fever Few, which is like an English folk album. One of the songs on there he sings with my daughter Denise is 500 years old. And that's a great album, Panic Grass and Fever Few. That's worth listening to. I could name the Harry Beckett album, which we re-released. It's like our jazz album, The Modern Sound of Harry Beckett. My daughter Denise's album, This Road, which is a beautiful album as well. I made so many records and people just don't know them. So you end up saying, you know what, when people come up to you, I was at a gig and a really famous British comedian came up to me and he said, "Oh, Adrian." I was like, "Oh, he's really glad to meet you." And I said, "Oh, glad to meet you." So I was a fan of his as well. And he said, "I just bought one of your albums and I love it." And I thought he was going to say, one of the logical ones. Because I met him at a Mark Stewart gig and he said Panic Grass and Fever Few, Ian King. It's just so weird. So when you've done what that I've been lucky enough, or Dennis or other people, to be around so long and be involved in so many wonderful creative involvements, and somebody suddenly comes up and mentions something that it feels like the world's forgotten about, and even you've forgotten about yourself, and says, "Oh, I love that." It warms you up. You feel great, And
I'm a big fan of. You did a few remixes for the Wooden Tops, who I was a huge fan of in the '80s, and one of those was "Why," which became a weirdly huge record in Acid House, right?
I don't know. No one told
Oh, I
me
think
that.
so. It was like somebody heard it, like a DJ who went up to play Ibiza managed to like work that in, and it became like huge from Ibiza in like 1988 or whatever. But
Well, my version or the original?
yeah, your version, yeah.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Weirdly, I saw a Rolo. He came to my London gig, and I spotted him after the gig and said hello. That was
Another one, and this one was is a song that is probably better known. I listened to Gary Clale's Human Nature the other day, and that song is still a banger. That went top 10 in the UK. Is that the biggest hit that you've been associated with, or have you gone to number one?
No, that's a freak hit, really. But it wasn't because I mixed it. Paul Oakenfold and Steve Osborne turned it into the commercial success. I'm always the one who gets to do the weird alternative versions.
But you produced the original recording, though, right?
Yeah, of course.
Do you turn down a lot of high-profile stuff these days?
In the past, I did lots, yeah. But I'm stupid. I should have done them. But at the time, I kept thinking I stayed loyally to my own crew, trying to get the label to go massive. So I turned down lots of things, but it wasn't being rude. It was just thought I was too busy and to concentrate on what I was doing. If I'd closed the label down in 1990 and just gone on to the offers I was getting, I'd have made a fortune. But hey ho, I did what I did, and I'm still here and still making records. And a lot of those other people, they've gone off and they semi-retired with all their money.
You mentioned the Nightmares on Wax upcoming record, which is out later this month or next month. What else is on the horizon for you? Anything?
Well, at the moment, I'm just concentrating on that because I'm not rushing to put things out. I'm sat on lots of recordings that are wonderful, but I'm going to probably bide my time until next year to see them all released properly, because it's 2.5 years since the last release on the label, apart from the collapse of everything, which was Creation Rebels, Hostile Environment. But I've got some wonderful things. With Horace Andy, I've got a Lee Perry album called The Atmos Files that is nuts. I'm just sitting on that because too many people putting out things going this, and I want to preserve the legacy with Lee really well. I've got a Tackhead album as well that, again, unreleased, as we were doing before Keith died, and it's very good. It's very, but I'm sitting on that, and then hopefully release it with all the back catalogues, a box set in a year's time or something. And also another set of recordings with Horace Andy and Jeb. I've got quite a few things just sat there, but I like kind of just waiting until the time's right for all of them and keep tweaking and working on them a bit. And so in the interim period, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I'm not in a rush to go madly into the studio for the sake of it. I want to go in and think something great will come out and something magic, as I said before.
Okay. You mentioned Lee Scratch Perry a couple times, and you've worked with a few what people might call eccentrics over the years, including Marky Smith. And I was wondering if you could maybe compare and contrast working with Marky Smith and Lee Scratch Perry.
Well, Mark was a cantankerous. I'm a big fan of his lyrics, and I learned quite a bit from him about anti-production, about not adding reverbs, no delays, deliberate things to make it sound like a bit, dry and off on the production side. Whereas Lee wasn't. Lee could be cantankerous as well, but he was obsessed with creating an atmosphere where something really brilliantly magic and spontaneously happen. I think Mark would sit in his house and hear the bass line, the guitar riffs, every aspect of something, and then go in and recreate it. Whereas Lee would create an ambience where something really magic would just happen spontaneously. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's
okay. Yeah, I think that's about it for you. But we always end the interview by asking our guest if they could name 5 records they think everyone should own. I don't know if you prep for this or not, But if things come to you off the top of your head.
Well, you mentioned Marky Smith. I mean, I did a record with him where I worked on one track, but I helped set up the sound for the recording of it all. With Grant Showbiz was the Slates record. I liked the Slates mini album a great deal. I liked a lot of the Fall stuff because his lyrics were wonderful. But I'd rather if I'm forgetting the Fall, I would go Lee Perry's Blackboard Jungle album was revolutionary to me. Just the use of stereo from 73 or whatever it was. This is just absolutely nuts with the drums out of one side, sound effects out of the other, just the madness of it. As an album, again, I discovered the Ethiopics, when they put out all those records. I'd heard them from Shabazz Music in Addis Ababa before, but when they released the Ethiopic series, Volume 4, the instrumental album, if I was doing a Desert Island Discs, that album I could play all day long. I love that album. Ethiopics Volume 4, the instrumental album, check it out. It's absolutely beautiful. On the reggae front, again, I think one of my favourite albums because it was so heavy and socially, the lyrics were so poignant and brilliant at the time was Pablo Moses' A Revolutionary Dream. I loved that album. That was a really great album. I mean, again, Lee Perry was just the master, I mean, his Arcology record, the collection of all his works. I mean, just growing up, things that didn't add up that I liked. There were lots of records like that.
Adrian, this has been a real pleasure. I feel like
Likewise, nice chatting to you.
Thanks very much, and hopefully we'll see you sooner than later on these shows.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope I get out there. I hope we get out there. It's
Okay, thanks again to Adrian Sherwood for being on this week's show. Check out his new solo album, The Collapse of Everything, and for an overview of his production work, check out the 2 Adrian Sherwood at the Controls compilations, which are on the streaming service of your choice now. Meanwhile, you should also check out our other podcast, BV Weekly, where my coworkers Dave and Andrew discuss the week's hot button music news, the latest releases, and more. You can also follow Brooklyn Vegan on social media, and if you like this episode, be sure to tell your musically minded friends about it, as well as do all those other things all the podcasts ask, like, subscribe, write us a review, give us 5 stars, all that stuff. It really does help us reach more ears. Big thanks to our mix engineer, Nick Gray, and Michael Silverstein for the theme music. I'm Bill Pearis. Thanks for listening.